You are listening to the Navigating Adult ADHD podcast with your ADHD coach and expert, Zena. Hello, my friend. Hello, my sparkly brain. Hi. Welcome to our episode today on ADHD and all or nothing thinking. Boy, have I had a extreme experience of this in the past week. So right now I am recording this episode for you in Hawaii. I am very fortunate to have been here for the last couple of weeks, and earlier this week, whilst I was here in Hawaii on the island of Oahu, I was convinced that I was going to die in a tsunami. Yes, I'm talking fully planning the escape route, telling Emmett, so my partner, he was here at the time, I was telling him, you've got to pack a bag, don't take anything unnecessary. I'm talking food, water, go into the pantry, grab as much as you can, and we've got to be prepared to run, right? And I was imagining a giant wave, a giant wall of water, and it never happened. Now, what I did not realize in that moment when I was panicking was that I had been hijacked by one of ADHD's more powerful mental habits, and that is all or nothing thinking. And that was running my brain, okay? So it's so funny as I reflected on this, because I think ADHD, we're often really calm in a crisis. And I know if I had been at home, and I know that New Zealand did also have the tsunami alert. So this was as a result of the earthquake just off the coast of Russia. And if I'd been at home, I think, I probably would have been fine. Yes, I would have got amongst it and done what I needed to do, etc. But here in Hawaii, when I'm in a foreign country, I don't know where the certain zones are, where's considered safe, where's considered not safe, where you need to be if there's a tsunami. So we are somewhat close to the beach, and we're on the first floor. So we're one story above ground, but still pretty close to sea level, really. And I don't know where the evacuation zones are. I don't have a map. I don't know anything about this. The website goes down. I kid you not. The fucking website that is the disaster relief tsunami planning website goes down because so many people are looking at it for where is a safe area to be. And you get these alerts on your phone. That's how I first knew that there was a tsunami warning. And you get this alert on your phone, and it's very loud and very scary, like a serious alarm, right? And the first one, I was like, okay, let's have a look. And you take it seriously. You start doing your research. You try and get on the website that's down, which doesn't help, right? You look on the news, all of this sort of thing. And then what happened, and this is what really freaked me out, is here in the building. So we're in an apartment complex, right? They start having their own alarms, their own sirens that go off. Apparently this happens because if people don't have cell phones with them, then they're getting notified that there is a tsunami warning, right? That there is something that they need to know and they need to take action on. So your phone is going off, and our phones were going off every hour to start with. And then they estimated that the first wave was going to hit at 7:10 in the evening. And so this all started at around 3:00 in the afternoon. And so once we've established that the first wave's due to hit at 7:10, we know we've got a bit of time and we need to pack shit up and we need to get to higher ground. And they were taking this very seriously. And there's all of these alarms going off in the building, on your phone. And where we're staying, not only is my phone going off, my partner's phone's going off, other devices in this house are just going off, right? So there's all these sirens, and it's scary as fuck, right? And you're in a foreign country, right? And I'm panicking, I'm freaking out, and I'm thinking we have to get to higher ground, staying here is not an option, right? And Emmett was due to fly out the next morning on a flight, and I was like, he is not getting on that flight. They are going to ground the airport because the airport is at sea level, right? This is really bad. And everyone here is taking it so seriously. At the time, I did not see a world in which a tsunami wave did not hit Hawaii. I thought for sure it was happening. We were in serious danger. And yet I was completely wrong. This, my friends, is all or nothing thinking, right? It's also often referred to as black and white thinking, Okay, same thing. And it's a cognitive distortion, right? Like a mental distortion where we perceive situations or ourselves or other people in these extreme, absolute terms without acknowledging the middle ground or the nuances, right? The differences. And our ADHD brains love to see things in extremes. We do. Right? I often refer to myself and my brain as incredibly dramatic, like we're very extreme. And I love that about myself. However, there are times like this, like when a tsunami could be approaching, where it can cause pain, where it might cause problems. And I want us to talk about that. So when our ADHD brain is seeing things in extremes, it might sound like, I'm always late, or I never reach my goals. I procrastinate everything. Right? Does that sound familiar? Like very extreme. Either it's perfect or it's a failure. Right? Again, black or white, one or the other. I love it or I hate it. Everything's gone to shit or everything's going really well. Right? So black and white. I always do it or I never do it. Right? So research shows that the ADHD brain can struggle with cognitive flexibility, which means that it is more challenging for those of us with ADHD and other forms of neurodiversity. It's more challenging for us to find that middle ground. So my friend, I'm curious, can you recognize this? Can you see where this shows up in your life? Maybe you see a recent test score and you believe I'm a complete failure. Or you get some feedback from your boss and then you think I'm a total fuck up. I'm going to get fired. It's thinking in these extremes, and it's either black or it's white. It's good or it's bad. This was a good day or it was a bad day. Using words like always and never. It was the best day or it was the worst day ever. Right? I'm on or I'm off. Nothing went right or it all went perfect. It's either right or it's wrong. Now, so often when this is happening, when we're experiencing this all or nothing thinking, we simply believe that we're just like relaying the news. We're just telling the truth. Right? I missed out on passing this exam by 1 point. Therefore, I am a total failure. Now, here is the problem with this way of thinking. What we think determines how we feel. Okay, now this is Psychology 101, and I wish that this had been taught in school because, hello, it would have been incredibly helpful to know that our thoughts, what we think, determines how we feel. Right? And those feelings, our emotions that we have, they drive all of our actions, right? You know, when you're feeling motivated, you do lots of shit, right? When you feel embarrassed, you want to hide, right? Again, our emotions drive all of our actions, but what creates those emotions is our thoughts, okay? When you think I'm a total failure, what do you feel? You feel terrible, of course. And what do you do when you feel terrible? Maybe you drink alcohol to numb the pain. You eat a tub of ice cream and binge watch Netflix shows. And maybe you quit your studies altogether. Right? Again, our thoughts determine how we feel. And how we feel is going to determine the actions we take or don't take. So let me give you another couple of examples. I used to think that I am a bad friend, right? Again, very extreme. I'm a terrible friend. I'm a bad friend. And when I thought that way, I felt ashamed. And what do people typically do when they feel shame? They hide. That's what we do. So what I did when I believed that I was a really bad friend and I felt shame, I didn't reach out to people. I didn't reach out to my friends, to the people I knew. I didn't go and spend time with them, right? I avoided social situations, and it actually increased my anxiety when I was in social situations. But also, I never focused on the friendships that I actually did have and the friendships that I was actually pretty good in. Here's another example. When I was younger, I was regularly, my brain was like, I want to say always, and I was like, that's not true. See, my brain's sneaky. But when I was younger, I was regularly setting these unrealistic, and I think now very unfair to myself, diet and exercise goals or plans. Okay. For example, like on a Sunday night, I would decide I'm going to run every day this week. I'm going to set my alarm for like 6 a.m. I'm going to get up and I'm going to run before I go to work. And then I'm going to eat the super low calorie diet with no alcohol. I'm going to have no alcohol all week. I'm going to have no chocolate, no lollies, no treats, nothing. Right? Like I'm just going to eat salad basically every day. And then when I slept in on the Monday morning, when I didn't get up when my alarm went off, and I told myself, no, I'll just do it later, right? I would inevitably start thinking, I never stick to a diet and exercise plan, right? I never follow through. And when I'm thinking that way, that all or nothing thinking, I would feel so much guilt and shame. Right? Those thoughts generated the feelings in me of guilt and shame. And what do I do when I feel guilt and shame? Right? I know then what I was doing. I was trying to numb the pain with the food and the alcohol and the Netflix. Right? Again, our thoughts determine how we feel, and our feelings, they drive all of our behaviors, all of our actions. And when we focus on the black and the white, right, rather than that gray in between or all of the different colors. I like to think of like if black's at one end and white's at the other, all of the colors, all of the beautiful colors that we have in the world are in between, right? But when we're focused on either the black or the white, it's good or it's bad, right? This creates a lot of perfectionism, and it prevents us from accepting things as good enough, as okay. And what happens often with us ADHD is this makes things like procrastination and paralysis so much worse. And it also contributes to us having high highs and low lows. So if you were to imagine a pendulum swinging from left to right, right? On one side, always. On the other side, never. It swings back left. I'm right. Swings back to the other side, I'm wrong, right? Swings again, I'm good. Swings to the other side, I'm bad, right? And here's some other examples of how this could show up. Wanting to feel perfectly prepared before starting a project. Thinking that you have to get it right, that you have to be prepared, right? That's all or nothing thinking, being very, very sneaky. I was coaching a client the other day and she's like, I have to take lots of notes. I have to note everything down. I can't miss anything. I was like, ooh, sneaky, right? That's all or nothing thinking. But what happens is that's worsening the procrastination. She's starting to get really anxious about how long taking all of these notes is taking, and she's wanting to avoid her studies because of this anxiety that she's feeling. So it's increasing the procrastination. It can also show up as having a very rigid schedule or plan for the day. And if one thing is off, one task, one schedule, one thing is off, the whole day is ruined. That was exactly how I was with my diet and exercise schedule. The moment I slept in and I didn't go for that run, the whole day was ruined. So what was the point? And it could also show up as diminishing your accomplishments if you didn't meet your own goals 100%. So if you had wanted to get, say, an 80% on this test and you got a 76, being like, oh, no, it wasn't good. That's not good enough. I didn't do very well. Like diminishing it, right? This all or nothing thinking can cause us a lot of pain and suffering. And in most cases, we are way off base, just like in my tsunami example. Right? But in my friendship example, when I was thinking I am a bad friend, I actually had some very good friendships then. I can think of three off the top of my head. Four close friendships I had with other women in my life who I spent a lot of time with, who I would regularly text and talk to and connect with. And I still believed I was a really bad friend. And yet I had more close female relationships then than I do today. Isn't that crazy? Like, my brain just didn't see those, didn't acknowledge those, it was just focused on the fact that, I didn't have lots and lots of friends or lots of acquaintances, shall we say. And back to the diet and exercise example. When I'm thinking, like, I never follow through, right? What's the point? All of these things. I'm not acknowledging the fact that I have actually followed through on regular exercise before. I have actually followed through on different diets that I had done before in the past. Like, that was true. I actually had, right? And often they were when they weren't this strict, which was so fascinating to look back on now. So in every extreme, there is always another way to think about it. Right? We can always find evidence for a different kind of truth, a different way to look at the situation that we are in. And that, my friend, is called cognitive flexibility or mental flexibility. Okay? Now, before we jump to extremes, because we have ADHD, when we start talking about like being mentally flexible, I just want to make sure that we understand we are not talking about toxic positivity here. We're not talking about pretending a shark is a dolphin, okay? We're talking about seeing that there is more in the ocean than just sharks and dolphins, all right? So this is definitely not the same thing as turning a negative into a positive, right? Saying that everything's fine, you can just stop worrying, it's all going to work out. No, if you had told me, right, when these sirens are going off and I'm in a foreign country, if you had told me that you're going to be fine, you should just stop worrying. If you'd said that to me when I was feeling this panicked feeling, I probably would have used my favorite 4-letter word, and you know what it is, it starts with F, and told you where to go, right? Because in that moment, I was in a state of fight or flight. I was completely dysregulated. I was not believing that everything was fine. And that is where we so often see the negative side of all or nothing thinking. When we are dysregulated, when we are in a state of flight, we have much less cognitive flexibility. We see things in very absolutes, very all or nothing. So when we think about being having cognitive flexibility, what a mouthful, and seeing a different perspective, right? Especially from this all or nothing place, I want to give you some visual ways to think about this. So I often imagine the pendulum swinging, right? So the pendulum swinging from left and then swinging over to the right. And when it swings over to the left, it's thinking, we're all going to die, this is terrible. And then it swings over to the right. Everything's great, we're all going to be okay, right? So very different opposite extremes. But what happens when it stops swinging and it settles in the middle? That's where we want to explore. Another way I like to picture this, and I think I gave you this visual a moment ago, is like if black is on the left side and then white is on the right side, then all of the colors are in between. Every single color, blue, pink, fluoro pink, light pink, baby pink, all of the colors are in between those two. You could also think of it like a dimmer switch, right? It's not a light switch. It's not an on or off. Right? Our brains like to flip between on and off, but there's actually a whole range of brightness in between. It's that dimmer switch that we have. So how do we actually do that? How do we increase our cognitive flexibility? How do we kind of break this pattern of all or nothing thinking that can cause us a lot of emotional pain, a lot of, trouble? So, my friends, you're going to love this because I'm about to tell you to nap. That's right. Nap. N-A-P. I hope that got your attention. So nap, here's what it stands for. Nap, the N. Notice when you have gone to the extremes. You're going to listen for the always and the never. Okay, and we're going to elaborate on this in a minute. A is for adjust. Adjust by poking holes in the story. And then P is for practice. Practice calming your body so that your brain can get flexible again. Okay, that is the nap. So let's talk about this. Let's talk about how we find that middle ground and explore different colors when we're experiencing this all or nothing thinking. So the very first step in the process, the N, is we have to notice it. Okay, we need to become aware of the way we're thinking. So we want to recognize when our brain moves into those extremes so that we can try and shift that pattern. We can poke holes in that. Okay, so pay attention to the words that you say to yourself and words that can signal this kind of black and white thinking pattern. So listen for words like always, never, all, none, bad. Okay, and it's also common for catastrophizing to follow this. And that'll sound like, I'm never going to figure this out. I'm going to lose my job. He's going to break up with me. Everyone thinks I'm stupid, right? Notice that. Very extreme, very catastrophic, okay? And then the A is the adjust. So this is where we play a little game of poking holes in our story, in our way of thinking. So I like to think of this like you are going to become a defense attorney for the other team, and your job is to poke holes in your own story, okay? To find ways in which there are occasions when this isn't true, or it's possible that something else is different. So for me, this often looks like using the word sometimes or possibility. Like sometimes people like me. Sometimes it's not as bad as my brain will tell me it is, right? Can you think of a time where you did actually follow through, right? Can you think of a time when it didn't turn out the way you thought it was going to turn out, like it actually turned out better, right? Using words like maybe or occasionally, right? It's possible that the tsunami wave will only be small. It's possible that the tsunami won't hit. It's possible that they are taking drastic measures because they're not sure what will happen, but it's possible we could all be okay, right? Maybe things will work out, right? So again, like poking holes, finding a different way to look at this story, right? Other people can do this. Other people say this. Other people do this. That's another way to look at it, okay? So again, it's about poking holes in your theory, poking holes in your story. Step 3 in our NAP process is the practice, right? This is where we want to practice the emotional regulation and self-soothing things, especially when these big emotions hit, because when we're having extreme thinking, we're going to have extreme feelings as well. This is where we want to practice like calming and soothing our body so that we can get our brain flexible again, right? When our body feels safe, we can get more control of our brain, and it's much easier for us to think in a more flexible way. Okay. So when we were experiencing like this whole tsunami warning and like getting ready to go to higher ground, and we did, like, one of my friends here, she picked us up and took us up into the hills to stay with some of her friends. And during that time, I remember being in the car with her and then like getting to this place where there's all these new people I've never met before. And like, they were way calmer than I was. And I'm normally a pretty, like, I can kind of keep it together person. But I might have looked a little crazy, okay? I'm going to admit it, because I was so focused on regulating myself and helping myself to soothe and to calm. And I was doing a lot of EFT tapping, so I'm tapping my fingers all over my body. I'm deliberately taking very deep breaths. I'm using the physiological sigh, so I'm trying to create the sigh effect. I was butterfly tapping, so I've crossed my arms over my chest and I'm tapping. I was placing like my hand on my chest, on my skin. I was even talking to myself out loud with reassurance, because for me, when I say it out loud, it has a more powerful effect than when I just say it in my head, although both are very helpful. I was saying things like, you're okay. In this moment, you are okay, and I've got you. So I was doing all of this, right, in front of a bunch of people like I don't know that well or that I've just met. But that was what I wanted to do to help myself soothe, to regain this cognitive flexibility that I wanted to get. And it worked. It helped hugely, right? Like, there were times when like I would calm myself down and then my brain would go back to, oh my God, like what if my partner can't fly out tomorrow? What if like this? Oh my gosh, like this is terrible. We're going to have to sleep up here. We're going to have to like stay here. What if the house gets like washed away? Like, and then I would have to come, like my brain would, kind of get hijacked with all of that. And then I would come back and I would do some more of this emotional regulation, some more of this self-soothing and talking to myself, tapping, breathing, and then I was able to, the more I did it, right, the easier it was for me to reach this kind of mental flexibility so that I could think in a different way. And I had to, it was kind of like waves, like I was going through that. Not a great example when I'm talking about a tsunami, I get that. But like I would, have the extreme emotion, I would help myself to regulate and I'd be able to think more flexibly. And it was kind of like coming and going in waves, but they were getting further and further apart. Okay. So again, the nap that you're going to take when this hits is notice, right? The N is for notice. When you've gone to the extremes, listen for the catastrophizing, for the, extreme, always, never, all or nothing thinking. Okay. And then we go to adjust by poking holes in the story, right? Is it possible that this could be nowhere near as extreme as they're making it out to be? Is it possible that my brain is, telling me a lot of stories that could be untrue? Right? Is it possible that I'm going to be okay? Is it possible, like possibility is one I use a lot, right? And then the P in our nap is practice calming your body, right? Using those regulation tools and techniques so that your brain can get flexible again. Okay. Now, my friend, this is a practice. It's not a perfect. It's not a one and done thing. It's a practice. Okay. And the more we practice it, the easier it is to be able to access it when we need it. So that tsunami, right, that I'm telling you about, it never came. Just like so many of the big, scary thoughts that our brains throw at us. All or nothing thinking will tell you that the wave is already here, that it's all ruined, that you are doomed. But the truth? There is a whole spectrum between disaster and perfection. So my friend, this week, when you catch yourself going to those extremes, I invite you to hit pause and ask what else is in the middle here? What are the colors in between the black and the white? Because your brain might be telling you it's life or death. It's all or nothing. It's good, it's bad. It's terrible, it's awful. But I promise you, there is always something else in between. Okay. Huge love, my friend. Take care. I'll speak to you soon. Hey friend, if you want some more help navigating and thriving with ADHD and some help applying everything that you're learning here on the podcast, then head over to our website, navigatingadultadhd.com.